welcome to episode 25 of the Craft House Magic podcast. I'm your host Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is Thursday the 5th of October. So if you want to find me on the social medias, you can find me as Craft House Magic on most of them, and I'm most active on Instagram if you're interested in following me there. We've got a couple of knit alongs going on. We've got the Happy Along, which runs from the beginning of September and runs all the way till the end of December, and we're giving away prizes to those who put objects into the Finish Objects thread at the end of each month. So I've got September's prizes to announce, which I will tell you at the end of the podcast if you're interested, or if you've entered. We're also doing the doodle along. Now, I finished my doodle already, but I gave everybody till the end of October to finish theirs, to put their finished objects in the finished objects thread to be eligible for prizes. So if you're doing your doodler, don't forget to put some pictures in the discussion thread just to see how you're getting along. If you've got any tips that you would like to share with the rest of us, it'd be lovely to hear from you. So those are really fun, and thank you all for joining in. It's really nice to have a chat about what you're knitting along with. So today we've got some knitting, some finished objects and some works in progress, some sewing, which includes dressmaking, quilting, some cuddly toys, or one cuddly toy, some cross stitch, and I've got a bit of bobbin lace. I've got the usual blast from the past and Gadget, and a couple of confessions. We've got a couple of questions from the Ask Me Anything thread on Ravelry, so if you do have any more questions, don't forget that if you pop up a question on the Ravelry group for Ask Me Anything, I'll then answer it in the podcast as soon as I can. We've got 3 questions for this time, but short ones, so it's not too bad. And then lastly, there'll be the Cal Prize winners for September for the Happy Along, which I mentioned before, and I'll just chat briefly about my shop update that I had on my Etsy shop. So we better get started. I've got some knitting to start with. I'll just have a sip on my tea. Lovely. Right, so I've got 2 finished objects this time, which is really exciting. I think just before the last podcast, I started knitting the sockhead hat, and ta-da! I finished! So the yarn was gifted to me by the lovely Marie of Mint Bee Yarns, and this base is called Bee Royal, and the colourway is called Rhubarb Crumble, and you could just eat it, couldn't you? I love this hat. It's so drapey because of the base I've used, because it's got baby camel and silk in it. Amazing. I'm going to attempt to put it on now, and I've got clips in my hair, so hopefully it doesn't get caught. So it's quite a slouchy hat. I think it looks better when I haven't got all my hair down under it. But there's a slouchy bit at the back. I hope you can see it. Oh, and it's so comfortable. I've got it flipped over. Some people wore it so they had it turned over like this. So that might make it slightly less slouchy. What do you reckon? Turned up, less slouchy, down and more slouchy. So, I've managed not to get it caught in my hair clips. So that's my hat, my sockhead hat. I would definitely knit this again. It's a lovely easy knit, so you can carry it around travelling and just do knitting as you go along places. So I definitely knit it again, and this yarn is adorable. So this would be a lovely gift. But unfortunately, I'm going to keep this for myself. I will knit some gifts though, and it did make me happy, so I was knitting it with the Happy Along, really. So that's my first finished object. My second finished object is a pair of socks, and this is a really good start to Socktober. So these are just basically vanilla socks, and I've done the Eye of Partridge heel in there, and then knitted with a yarn that I dyed. I just dyed in a slightly different way than I normally do, just to test out how the pooling would occur. And you can see how it's sort of pooled. There's blue tones and grey tones and pink tones in there as well. You can't really see the blue tones very well on this camera. To set the white balance a little bit better. But I was also doing it to test not only the way my colours came out with my dyeing, but also the base, because I'm looking for a really nice sock base. And I don't know, it's really lovely and soft and it feels lovely on the feet, but I was a little bit worried that it's not high enough twist really for socks. And I know that I knit tightly, so that's not too bad for me, but it'd be nice to have a higher twist one, so I'm on the lookout for those. I have bought some more recently, you can see just there, some undyed stuff to have a go with that looks a higher twist. So I'm going to dye those up and see how that goes on. So there we go, first pair of socks finished for October. And we're on to works in progress. Now I haven't done an awful lot on my teasel socks, but I thought I'd just show you them anyway because it's coming up so pretty. There's this lovely textured stitch at the bottom there. This is part of the heel flap, and it's pretty much the same as the textured stitch at the top. So I haven't done an awful lot. I've only done since the pattern, which is terrible really. I've been doing a lot of driving around. Me and Adam have been on a little adventure, which I'll talk to you about in the end. So I didn't sort of take anything more complicated rather than just plain stockinette stitch. It's brilliant for when you're sort of in the car for long periods of time. So there we go, they're really, really gorgeous. So these are the Teasel socks by Teresa Shingler, and the yarn is also called Teasel as well, so that was lovely. Teresa sent me as a little present. Oop, my DPN case has fallen on the floor. That's not very good, is it? So they're coming along. I hope to get a little bit more done on there for next time. Unfortunately, I've only done about 2 centimetres on my Gonyov shawl that I said that I was going to work loads on. Haven't at all. Terrible. Distracted. Most of my knitting though, because we've been travelling a little bit in the last week, it's been all plain knitting, so that's my excuse. So I've also done a little row on my Cozy Memories blanket. Got my labels here to remind me what the yarns are called. So I've done this top row, this since the last time. I think it was 2 episodes ago since I last showed you this, so I should have got on a little bit better with it, shouldn't I? So these 3 squares were swapped, or gifted to me in a lovely swap from the lovely Julie and Elsie that I saw at Fibre East. So those are some of the ones that they sent me. They were so generous. Thank you so much, ladies. So this one is a fondant fibre, and the colourway is called Ring of Roses. So I'll just show you that. And this one is a Malabrigo, and it's on their singles base. I can't remember what it's called. Machita? I shall show you what it's called just there. There we go, so it's the Lotus colourway. I haven't knitted with their singles base before, but it came up really nice. And it does, because it's a singles base, I think it's taken the colour up really super well, so that's lovely. And this one, I've completely forgotten. Where's the label gone? Here we go. This is Rose's Moments, and it's called Sprinkles, the colourway, and that's a lovely green speckled yarn. Now these 4 were gifted to me by the lovely Sharon. Hi Sharon! So these 2 are Knit Picks ones, and those 2, she said, I think were, I've got my little note here, Regia, my first Regia. So they're really pretty, and I can tell that they're Sharon's colours. So there's my row on my Cozy Memories blanket, and you can see I've got a bit of a rectangle going on there. I might see if I can do some rows on this longer side and try and continue on with the same theme on each of those rows with, because I think, so this one, I had a little swap with a lovely Naomi from Cozy Cute Knits, and these ones are the ones I bought at Fibre East, for instance. So if I can do a little bit more on the next row for each of those sort of sets, because they're kind of like little memory rows, if you know what I mean. So I'm really enjoying that. What I'm going to try and do next week is my sort of off week when there isn't a podcast. I'm going to try and get up a video to do with how I do my Cozy Memories blanket, because I know a few people ask me questions, and it'd be nice to have a little video to just show you exactly what I do. So that's my works in progress for knitting. I'll have to make a little bit more room. Because it's October, you have to cast on more socks. So I plan to cast on some of the yarn that I dyed up in the sort of blue and pinky colourways, and I also want to cast on this. Now this is my Lolo Did It, and this is my Pretty Little Zombies that I bought when we were on our honeymoon in America. Well, I got it ordered and sent to the hotel, which is really naughty. But I thought, October, Halloween, Pretty Little Zombies. Just the time of year to be casting those on. So I thought rather than waiting till actual Halloween, it might be quite nice to have done quite a bit just before it. Might even cast them on before the next podcast, we'll see. So, you can never have enough socks, can you? Lovely. I'm also thinking about what sort of sock pattern to use, because I might do a little bit of a more complicated pattern, but I need to check out my books and see what patterns I've sort of marked to do. I've also been thinking about other knitting projects, so this is my sort of dream knitting section that I don't really talk about because I always forget. So I was thinking that I really wanted to do the Stephen West's Mystery Knit Along, and I've been looking at all the shawls that people have been knitting and they look so pretty. I really should have started it, although I made a rule. I said no more yarn, Ellie, because I'd have to buy 3 100-gram skeins and a set of minis, or I've got plenty of minis so I can probably find some out of there, but I couldn't justify buying 3 more skeins of yarn to go for the shawl, and I looked into my stash and there wasn't anything that really gelled together very well, so I will see, maybe in the future. But it looks really interesting. Also, I've been thinking about doing is the Bits and Bobs blanket by Kay Jones, and Kay Jones is from the Bakery Bears podcast. That's a lovely podcast if you're looking for podcasts to watch and you haven't watched it already. You probably have done. They're amazing anyway. So the Bits and Bobs blanket is it's a bit like brioche, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like I can't remember. It's a bit like brioche anyway, and it's a blanket, and it can use all your little bits and bobs up, so I was thinking about starting one of those. Although I have got my Cozy Memories blanket already. Maybe I'll start it over Christmas when there's a bit more time. And I just, for the Happy Along, I saw that somebody had done the evergreen socks, and they're by Madeline Gannon, and they are gorgeous. They're little Christmas trees done in a lace pattern. I'm going to have to knit those for Christmas. I'm not sure whether I'm going to knit it on one of my Christmas colourways that I dyed up, or whether I'll have to buy one more skein. And one skein doesn't matter. Oh dear, I should have an in and out rule. If I knit so many skeins of yarn, I can buy one more. So there's enough of me rambling on about the patterns I fancy. Hopefully I've remembered to pop some pictures up here of what these look like, so you can actually see what I'm rambling on about. So, I've been doing a bit of sewing. So first of all, I'm going to talk about my dress that I've been making, my shirt dress. And with a bit of luck, Barbara will appear just now. Hi Barbara! So you can see that I've finished my collar. I'm so chuffed with this. As I was sort of sewing in it, I was coming together, I was like, oh my god, I've done a collar. I have made collars before, but just not for ages. And just the crispness of it, oh, lovely. I need to make more shirts. So I haven't actually quite finished it. I haven't done the buttons. I've got some that I think I might use, but I just wanted to sort of have a think about it before I start going mad and making buttonholes everywhere, because they might not be the right size for the buttons I choose. So I have got some in my stash. Now, because I'd seen Tina from Simply and Stitches got little metal ones, I don't know how easy it is to be able to see these. I found these in my stash, but I've only got 5. So I don't think it's going to be enough, really. I don't know. No, I think I'm going to need at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I'm going to need 6 at least. I could always do a different one at the top. I don't know. So there's that sort of thing. I do have another set of smaller buttons, but I didn't like them quite so much in the silver. They're those ones. Right, how many I've got of those? There's probably about 6, so I might just get away with it. But I did find these buttons that I'd bought that are sort of grey, but they're a bit boring. What do you reckon? Any of those 3? Or do you think I should go for a completely different colour? I'd love to know, because sometimes now I'm like just too excited to get and wear it. So I'm really chuffed, like I said, about this collar. But when I put it on, I find because I've got voluptuous hips, it pushes the waistband quite high, and therefore this back bit sticks out quite a lot when I'm wearing it. So I don't know whether to try and sort of put a couple of stitches in just to stop it from gaping too much. I don't know, so I think in the future I'd perhaps shorten this back panel to accommodate, which will probably mean that I need to lengthen the skirt a little bit. I didn't actually check to see if it's nice and sort of parallel to the floor. I'll have to see. Any suggestions on how's best to sort of try and fudge this into to make it not stick out so much? I'd be really interested in seeing what you've got to say. But because I've sort of sewn this waistband on the outside and on the inside, it's going to be a real pain to undo it. I don't know if I can be bothered to do that, so I might just try and fudge it. It doesn't look too bad, but I'd rather it didn't stick out that much. When I've got my buttons on, I'll take some photographs of me wearing the dress so you can see what I mean. But other than that, I think the construction's worked out pretty well. I'm just cutting off the top a little bit when I'm showing you, sorry. She's a bit tall. There we go, you can see her a little bit better. Sorry, Barbara's a bit squeaky. So you can see how the collar sort of rests there, and it actually fits quite nicely on my dressmaker's dummy. Might have to go to the gym to make the bum a little bit smaller. Oh dear. But yeah, I think she's come along nicely. I can't wait to get the buttons on, but do give me some ideas of what you think's best for the buttons. And whether you think that the grey will look a bit sort of washed out. I have got a brown belt that I was going to wear with this. I think I was going to at least try it when I finished. But okay, I'll go on to the next thing. Thanks, Barbara! So we've done our dressmaking, now on to a little bit of quilting. So, I'm grabbing my quilt now. I'll explain to you a little bit about it first. So, our quilt group has been making some quilts for the charity called Project Linus. Project Linus is a charity which actually started in America, I think, but there's lots of representatives around the UK now, that makes quilts for children or babies or teenagers that have either undergone illness or some sort of stress in any way. So by making quilts and knitted and crocheted blankets as well, which is lovely. So our group has put some strips together, and then we've been taking them home to do the quilting on them. So this is just different strips of all the lovely brightly coloured children's fabrics, and then the back is a nice rainbow coloured fabric, and I've just done a little bit of sort of massive vermicelli on there just to quilt it together. I don't know whether I can really hold the thing up. It's sort of just a bit bigger than cot size, I suppose, so it would be for the younger children, this one. But this is the first time I had a go at bagging out a quilt, which means instead of doing the normal binding, you basically sew the layers together and then turn it inside out and top stitch it around to hold the edge together, if that makes sense. And then I've quilted it afterwards. I don't think it's the best job in the world because I've never done bagging out before. There is some sort of bagginess there, but I don't think that really matters too much, especially if it's for a child. They're not going to notice that there's slightly more fabric on one side. But I think that'll make a little child smile. I think lots of lovely bright colours and cartoon characters on there. And some lovely strawberries I can see. So if you're interested in helping the Project Linus, I found that there was a website. I will put the address down below here, and you can go and have a look to see what your nearest local representative is, and to see whether you can donate fabrics or help make quilts or blankets for the charity if you're interested. So it's a good way of sort of making extra stuff to get rid of as well. So it's kind of selfish in a way, even though you're helping somebody else. So it uses up lots of stash as well, which is good. So that's my quilting for this week. I've also been making sheep, or just one sheep. I think the singular is sheep. It sounds strange. So I've made a sheep. He sits down as well. So I have, if you look here, I've made a couple of these sheep before, but I made one in a toweling material this time. So he's basically made out of a really cheap £2.50 towel and just some brown cotton fabric. And I got the pattern, I've showed you this before, but just in case you haven't seen it, from this book. And it's basically it's a Tilda book called Crafting Springtime Gifts. And this is brilliant because there are quite a few lovely, lovely things to make. For example, I'm trying not to show you the instructions, but there's some really nice chickens here. I have made a chicken, but I've already gifted it to somebody, so I can't show it to you. But there's so many lovely little toys. So this is what the sheep are supposed to look like. It's similar to what I've got, so it's not too bad. And it's just a great, I love making toys. It's so much fun. That's why I've got so many in here. But on those ones, I stuffed the legs really full so that they basically stand up. But this time, I remembered not to put too much stuffing in the legs so he can sit down. But he hasn't got a fluffy tail, which my friends took note of. He should have a fluffy tail. I should have to add one. I need to make some of those Tilda dolls as well. They're really cute. If you watched since before last Christmas, you'll know that I made like an angel for the Christmas tree, which turned out to be massive. But it was still fun, and she sits next to the Christmas tree instead. So she's still useful. She still looks Christmassy. Right, so we're on to cross stitch. This doesn't look like I've done much, but I've spent about 4 or 5 hours since the last podcast, and I did this vase of flowers, the little reindeer, and this little strip of green. I've got some fluff. Cottons in my craft room are absolutely everywhere, so it's coming along quite nicely. Hopefully, maybe by the end of next year I might have actually finished it. So there we go. So this is a sampler that I bought a long time ago, so that's what it's going to look like. I don't think I showed you on the last podcast. So I've done sort of this centerpiece, these two, one vase, and the hearts at the bottom and some of the trees. So I'm really looking forward to getting to this tree here. It's gorgeous. Well, this blue one's my favourite. So there we go. That's the cross stitch for this time. The lovely Raquel from Instagram asked if I could just go through my sort of cross stitch supplies. Now, one of the things that I use a lot is this needle keeper, and it's basically, if I just open up the fabric, it's got a magnet on the back and another piece of clay, so it holds the other side of the fabric, and this just holds onto your needle. And this is from Chapel View Crafts, which is an Etsy shop, and then lovely Cheryl does some beautiful miniature cakes on there of all sorts of different things, so it's worth a look. She's doing some Christmas stuff at the moment. I might need a Christmas needle keeper. So that's item number 1, and I have showed you this relatively recently. I use a Q-snap frame, which lots and lots of people have used before me, but I only recently found them. And I've made this grime guard to go on it, which is basically just a rectangular fabric with some elastic around it. I am planning on doing a tutorial for this in the next month or so, but it's just not going to be straight away, it's going to be a few weeks. So that's ideal because it makes your fabric, it just sort of tidies your fabric up behind there as well as keeping it clean. I have showed this as well before. This is my magnifying headset, so because I'm practically blind I need these to see the tiny little stitches. So this is ideal. This is Rolson, and you can get these for about £10 or £15 from Amazon. Absolutely ideal for doing embroidery and things, so I definitely recommend those. And I also use, this is going to make noises, sorry, this stand for my cross stitch pattern, and you get these magnets with it. It's a DMC one, this is probably, I don't know if this is the largest size that they do, but it's brilliant because you don't have to keep trying to find where your pattern is, it can just rest on the table. Oops. And I've just squeezed the removable, I've just squeezed it open, which is clever. But that can lay flat as well and be stored, so that's useful. I'll just pop that under the table out of the way. So those are the things that I use for my cross stitch Raquel. I hope that's helpful. I do think especially the Q-snap frame and the grime guard, absolutely ideal for just making it easier to do cross stitch, because sometimes it can be so fiddly when your fabric's massive. You just tuck it away, it's brilliant. So we're going on to bobbin lace now. So I showed you in the last episode that I'd been doing a doily, and I'll pop some pictures of here. When I'd finished it was still pinned onto the bobbin lace cushion, but now I've unpinned it. So I've just put it against this book so that you can see what it looks like off the frame and against something where you can actually see the white. So this is what the doily looks like, but you can see there's a mass of thread still hanging off it. Now normally if I was going to use this as a doily on the table, I'd thread these into the work so that you couldn't see them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to frame this and fussy cut some fabric to go in the middle. Whoops! Fussy cut some fabric to put in the middle, and then if I'm putting it onto some background fabric, I can thread those threads through the background fabric, and it makes the work a little bit less bulky, because when you're threading lots of these threads and weaving them in to get rid of them, it can sometimes make the work look a little bit messy. So I think it'd just be better to thread it through the back of the mountain material. I've actually ordered a circular frame for this, so hopefully that'll look good. I'm not quite sure what colour I'm going to do it on, because I don't really want black on the background, but it needs to be a contrast between the white and the pink as well, so that's good fun. If I just leave it on the side, it's going to get wrecked, I think, so it's best to put it in a frame. So that's my bobbin lace that I finished, but my next project that I'm planning to do is this butterfly. So this is the pricking, that's sort of the pattern of how to do the butterfly. Oops, sorry about the noise. This is the one I've made before, which was a slightly different pattern, and I wanted to make another one to go in the bottom of the frame just to fill it up a little bit. So that's going to be the plan for next week, hopefully. You never know, I might actually finish it before the next podcast because it's a small piece. I promise things, that probably won't happen. So that's the bobbin lace finished, and I'm just going to talk about a blast from the past. So I'm going to have to invite Barbara in again. So this is my Matilda blouse. This pattern's by Tilly and the Buttons, and it was one of the first patterns she brought out. Basically, this is a disaster. Not because it was sort of made that incorrectly, it's just the material, it was just awful. It's very, very, very static, horrible feeling material that sort of catches on you. And I spent so much time putting French seams and everything on it, it was just, awful. So I was really not very pleased with it. It looks so pretty as well with this pink sort of little tiny flowers on it. And also I made it slightly too small, which is not a good idea. You can see how I've attempted to make the buttons on the sort of larger side to make it fit, and I really liked how I put all different buttons down the back, and it was quite sweet. I might actually attempt to make this top again one day, because it's a really nice sort of design, just not a very good choice of fabric. I think that these pleats are really cute, but really awful fabric. I shall take it off Barbara and show you how awful the facing turned out, even though it's been understitched. Oh, sorry Barbara, you've got nothing on. So this neck facing has been understitched close to the edge, and it's just like bleh, awful, and it just, I don't know if you can hear it. It's just like static noise. Ah! So, sorry Barbara, I'll give you back your dignity. I really want to make some more of the Tilly and Buttons patterns. I think there's a, is it a Zadie dress, I think, which is made of stretch fabric. That would be really lovely too. So I want to try that soon. I say this, but there's so many things I want to do. So next we've got Gadget. So this week's Gadget is my bobbin holder. So because I've been doing so much more sewing, I've been using so many more bobbins, so I need this little holder to put all my bobbins in. And it allows me to sort of get 5 or 10 bobbins of the same colour all set up, so that I don't have to keep stopping and winding again, so that's really useful. And because it's sort of rubber, it just means that they stay in there really nicely, and you can just sort of, it doesn't matter if it sort of drops on the floor because they won't all fly out everywhere, they're stuck. So that's really good. I shall put a link to where I got this from in the down box if you're interested in getting this, so hopefully I remember to put the link in. I'm sure I will. So that's my Gadget for this week, and now we're on to confessions. Oh dear. I've been messing around with these mini skeins and they've got a little bit squished up. So these mini skeins I bought from Peggy May Yarns in one of her monthly yarn clubs, and those arrived. So I didn't actually buy them since the last podcast. I'd already bought them before. So they're a really nice high twist base if you look really closely. They're really nice colours. There's a nice bright pink. And there's some little speckled pinks and greys together. I think greys are always a lovely colour. There's sort of some muted peaches and grey. There's another one, but more high purple and black. There, similar to the other one. And then a nice yellow and grey as well. What do they call it? Grello. I'm trying to get up to date with the new terms that people use. I'm not down with the kids, am I? So that was the only thing that I'd purchased that I'd received since the last episode, but I received a gorgeous bag from Lou Lee. I shall open it so you can see the beautiful design. I haven't actually put anything in it yet because I wanted to show you how lovely it was before I'd ruined it with all my knitting. Absolutely gorgeous bag, and there's some really nice pockets inside, and I'll just show you Lou Lee's card. So it's Lee runs this Etsy shop and it's called Lou Lee, and I popped a little lavender bag in there because I always like everything to smell of lavender. But if you look, oh, I don't know if I can show you properly, but there's 2 lovely big pockets inside there, and it's made with some really nice sturdy fabric and very well sewn. It's absolutely lovely with a nice handle. So I'm really looking forward to using that, Lee. Thank you so much. And she sent us one for the giveaway, the Happy Along, and I shall show you the paper bag that it's in, but I haven't seen it, so it'll be a complete surprise to whoever wins it. So I shall show you the paper bag, which I'm sure you're all excited to see at the end of the podcast when I say the winners for the knit along. Right, so we've got Ask Me Anything next. So if you wanted to know just what we've got left, we've got the Cal prizes and the shop update info after the Ask Me Anything. So you don't have to stay if you don't want to listen to all that. So we had Georgina, who's Honey Pot Tree, I think, on Instagram, not Instagram, on Ravelry, she asked me what my interchangeable set was. Now, I used to have one of the Knit Pro Nova Silver sets. Well, I've still got it and I use it still. But I decided to purchase one of the higher sharp sets because I really like a nice sharp needle, because I knit so tightly. When you're trying to do like knit two together or slip knits, it's much easier when you've got a nice sharp needle. So I bought a higher set a little while ago, which I've probably shown you before. And I've got a set of the smaller size needles, which go, I think, from 2.75 up to the 5mm, which I don't know what is in the US, I'm afraid. So that goes from 2.75mm to 5mm. And I have added a couple of sets extra of the 3.5 because I tend to use those quite a lot. The length of needle I like is the 5-inch needle. Because of the way I knit, I like to rest the needle on my hand like this, so the 4-inch needles aren't quite as comfortable. So I like the 5-inch needles. I've also got a range of the cables which came with it, because I bought this as a second-hand set that had hardly been used, so I did end up with quite a lot of cables in there. I think it only normally comes with about 3, but I think the most useful ones is about 100cm or 150cm. I find that this came with this as well, which is really useful. I'm not sure if you get that if you buy it new. I don't know whether they bought it separately. I think there's about 4 cable needles. But what I think that's really important is I bought these separately. There's some little rubber higher sharp, well, not sharp, but higher little grabby things for tightening up the needles, because if you haven't tightened them up quite tight enough, they can undo, but when I've used these, they never undo. So really, really useful. I also bought one of these connectors for the interchangeable needles, which is great because if you then need to change to a different needle, a little different cable length, you can just connect them and move them along rather than having to slip stitches from one needle to another. So they're really useful. They came in a set with the rubber things actually for about £2 or £3, so well worth investing in. I think they were from Amazon again. I think that's all the things I've got to say about my needle set. So if you like sharp needles, I definitely recommend the higher sharps. I think they're my favourites because I feel that the sharpness is most important. The cables I really love as well because they are so flexible. They can bend a little bit, but that doesn't bother me. But when you're trying to do magic loop, I don't like the cable to be too long and sort of getting in the way everywhere. So I like it that it bends quite easily, and then you don't have to have such a long cable. So there we go. Thanks, Georgina. The next question was from Sue, and she was just asking me whether I was going to make up some or get some pins made, you know, those little pin badges. I am looking to see whether I can get a company that does it quite local to me or in the UK. So if anybody can recommend anywhere that does pin badges, like for particular customised ones, that would be wonderful if you could let me know. So I am thinking about doing that. If anybody is interested in having one, I should have them up in the next couple of months, hopefully. The third question is from Terry, who is Knitting Counts on Ravelry, and she was just asking me, how am I enjoying my new expanded craft time? It's blooming brilliant! It's so nice to be able to just fit in lots of things into the day, so I don't have to drive anywhere, so I'm saving a good hour where I used to drive to work and back, and then I can fit in a bit of knitting during the day when I'm having a tea break or something. It's brilliant, and I just love sewing up bags and things and getting new ideas. I've got so many ideas for the shop, just not enough time just yet, but there's plenty of time in the future, it'll be fine. So I'm just getting used to getting a bit of a routine, making sure I check the Ravelry threads, which I feel really guilty about. I think, oh, I haven't checked it for a few days. So sorry guys if I don't answer straight away. I've got to get into the routine of checking it every morning. That would be really good. But it's been so nice not to have somebody telling me what to do, which is really bad. I can just do, and I'm quite sort of addicted to crafting anyway, so I don't need to be told to hurry up and get on with it. So yeah, I've been really enjoying it, and it's so nice that everybody who's sort of bought anything from my shop, they're such nice people and beautiful, lovely comments, which is really nice as well. And while I'm on the subject, thank you so much for buying things from my shop. If you have in the last update or any time before, that's really nice. So thanks, Terry, for that question. I haven't answered it in very much detail, I suppose, but I don't want to waffle on for too long. So we're on to the prize winners for the Happy Along. So as I said before, these are the 2 prizes for the people who entered their finished objects in the Happy Along finished objects thread before the end of September. Anybody who's put any finished objects in the finished objects thread for the Happy Along in October will be picked, or be one of the people who could possibly win prizes for the end of October prize draw, if that makes sense. And then I'll do that again for November and December as well. So there's plenty of chances for winning. So get over to the Ravelry group and have a chat with people, see what they're making. So there was posts up to number 26 for in September, and post 1 was me, so I'm ignoring that one. So I'm not going to do it on the podcast because I think it caused people's phones to respond to me asking for a random number the last time, so I'm not going to do that. So I generated 2 random numbers on previous to the podcast, and the 2 prizes were the bag from Lou Lee, which is in this bag here, all secret. So this is a bag from Lou Lee, all wrapped up in secret as a surprise, ready to go. And the second prize is a sock pattern, which I'll show you in a minute. But the person who's won this surprise Lou Lee bag is Kelly Roxon, which was post number 20. And she did some, oh, these were really cool. They were socks knitted with those, what's it called? Perfect Socks by Arnie and Carlos. And it came out with this fantastic pattern. I'm going to have to get some of that yarn. So well done, Kelly. You're the prize winner for this. I'll get this posted to you if you personal message me your address so I can post it to you. And the second prize was the Green Mountain Spinnery Jeunesse Pebble Sock, which I've probably just pronounced incorrectly. Jeunesse, something like that. Sorry, I'll put a picture up here. And this sock pattern will go to post number 22, which is Little Red Robin, which is Sylvia. Congratulations, Sylvia. And she'd done a cosy blanket shawl, which is really pretty. So thank you all for entering into the September's Happy Along finished objects thread, and I look forward to seeing even more lovely projects in the October one. So lastly, we've got just some information on my shop update, and then I'm just going to have a little bit of a chat what I've been up to in the last week. So the shop update, I went live on the 1st of October, which was Sunday night, and I just wanted to show you a few of the bags that I didn't show on the last podcast. So I did a few more Christmas sock size bags, some snowflakes, that's what they call. There was some poinsettias and some little gift boxes. I won't show you all the insides. I did just do some separate DPN cases, which is the holly. You can see how I've gone a bit Christmas. This is one of the sets where you get a notions pouch and DPN case. And some stitch markers as well. That's the notions pouch and DPN case. And some little stitch markers on a little... I just have a little bit of cardboard, it makes it cuter. So these are all in that style with the 3 bags. So we've got a snowman. I won't spend too long talking about these. some Christmas trees, and there's a little reindeer and a little penguin on there, which is really lovely. There's some cute little winter houses, which I couldn't resist. I picked up this fabric at the quilt show last time, at the Festival of Quilts. I couldn't resist it. It's a good excuse to buy all this fabric when you can make stuff to sell. There's some reindeers, which is really cute. And I think I did some red lining in here, which is nice as well, just to brighten it up a little bit. So that's a set 2. We've got some Santas and some snowmen. You can see them on both sides. Of course they're on both sides. And I've got lots of them. I've got jingly bells for the little pull cord, because that's really cute. Love a jingly bell. So that's a set as well. And then finally we've got the stockings one. So there's quite a few of those in the shop if you're interested. I've been really busy. Oh, and I did do some more Halloween bags as well, where I've put some, like a lace over some orange fabric, and these ones have got like a really spooky hangman on there, which is a bit scary. But it's Halloween, it's got to be scary, hasn't it? So that's what's going in, well, what's in the shop already if you're interested. So I've also put some little gingerbread men progress keepers in the shop. That's what he looks like. Very, very cute. But if you are interested in having them as stitch markers, I do have some solid loops now that I can use. So if you just message me when you purchased your order, I can make them be progress keepers, not progress, stitch markers instead of progress keepers. So I told you in the last episode that Adam and I were going up to Southampton to go to a Comic-Con, which is a comic convention, if those of you who haven't heard of it before. I'm sure you all have though. They can be really fun. There was loads and loads of people dressed up in costumes. Most notably, there was a lady who was dressed in this gorgeous outfit for the Tooth Fairy, which was out of the Rise of the Guardians film. And she had these wings that sort of were electronically controlled that opened up behind her, which was amazing. So I might pop a couple of photographs here of different people dressed up. There was people dressed as the Transformers and loads of different things. Batman, and there was these cars outside, so it was quite interesting to go and walk around, and Adam loved it, so it was really nice to see him enjoying himself. We popped down to the New Forest and went to Lyndhurst and Lymington in the south of the UK as well. And I happened to pop into a craft shop and I bought some gorgeous little buttons. Actually, these should have been in confessions and I completely forgot. I'll pop a picture up here that I popped on Instagram before. It'd be easier to show you on the picture than holding them up to the camera. But I bought these gorgeous polymer clay buttons from a really nice little shop in Lymington. I'll have to pop in there again if we ever go down there again. So that was really nice, and there was a lovely market all down the street, and that's just such a lovely place, the New Forest. I definitely recommend holidays there if you're not from the UK and you didn't know which areas to visit. New Forest is definitely a good place to go. But I thought I'd just tell you a bit about what I'd been up to at the last couple of weeks. So this is why I ended up with lots of time knitting in the car, because we drove all the way to sort of Southampton and the New Forest, and then back up to Birmingham again, then back home. So there's lots of hours driving, which meant lots of easy knitting projects on the go. So in the next sort of few weeks before the next podcast, I hope to get a bit more complicated stuff done, make it a bit more interesting for you guys. So I think that might be about it. But if you have any suggestions for the podcast or anything you'd like to chat to me about, that'd be lovely to hear from you. Comment down below or over in the Ravelry group. It's lovely to hear from you. Don't forget to give me the thumbs up and subscribe if you want to hear me again, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Bye!